All four mayoral candidates are in the studio today, and you get a chance to ask some questions. We've got a bunch of questions that have come in from some folks. Want to welcome to our airwaves the mayor himself, Mr. Chris Loris. He is the incumbent, Mr. David Allaire, Mr. Mike Coppinger, and Mr. Cam Johnson. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. You know, typically when somebody is running for office, one of the very first questions that I ask is why you want the job. And people are going to have to decide whether or not they want to vote for you or the other guy. And each one of you brings to the table certain qualities. Many of you have served in state and or local government. You've served in organizations. You've worked in businesses in the community. That being said, why would any of you want to be mayor? And here's the question. What qualities do you have that the other guys don't have that would make you the person someone should vote for? I'm going to start with Mr. Loris, the incumbent. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm not sure if it's a quality that one of us, especially me, has that others don't, versus different levels of that quality. So I think I'll take that and not pivot, but just talk about what I believe to be my strengths and what I'm bring to the office that I've held for 10 years that I'll continue to provide and deliver to the community. And one is just straight up bold, decisive, resolute leadership. Some would argue that aspect of my personality and my leadership style at times can be a distraction. However, it's that style that brought us out of the Norcane within 5 days when that windstorm hit in '07. It's that style that brought us out of Irene and the leadership skills that were demonstrated during that tragedy. Likewise, it was the style and the decision-making that allowed us to address our greatest non-natural disaster, which was the opiate crisis facing not just Rutland, but Vermont and the entire country, where we've seen a very, very great success and have a nationally recognized program in place. So I would say, speaking to that specific question and letting the opponents get on with their answer, I would say it's that strong, decisive leadership style and a recognition of what my strengths are and what the strengths of the community are, and ensuring that we use those strengths to address any issues that may face the community.
Mr. Allaire, the same question to you. What do you bring to the job, or would bring to the job as mayor? What qualities do you possess that maybe your opponents don't have?
Well, what I believe my strengths are, Tim, is after 19 years of serving on the Board of Aldermen and 9 years as the board president, I have proved time and again that I can meet the challenges that are before us through collaboration, through openness, through transparency, and with communication, and talking about all the different aspects of whatever the problem might be. I can refer back to the time, I think it's my second year as board president, when we were facing a $5 million budget.
I just want to be sure that the on button is on that microphone that you didn't turn off. Would you push that up?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, collaboration, openness, transparency. Those have been the hallmarks of my 9 years as leader of the Board of Aldermen and my 19 years on the board. As I was saying, we were facing, in my second year as board president back in '07, a $5 million deficit that was unearthed by our city treasurer and others. And I led the board, and we made some very difficult decisions during that time and moved forward, got our city finances straightened out. And I'm very proud of that. And that was a collaborative effort. The city treasurer, the mayor's office, members of the Board of Aldermen, we all had to make difficult decisions, and we got through that. Just recently, working on pension issues, I was chair of the Pension Deficit Committee. We were facing and still do face a deficit in our municipal pension, and we have made recommendations and move forward on that issue. So again, my strengths are working in an open, fair, transparent way with all parties involved.
Mr. Coppinger.
Thank you, Tim. You got me there?
I got you.
Okay, I didn't. There we go. Now I can hear. So I think first and foremost, I bring a fresh perspective. Certainly Mr. Lair and the mayor can't necessarily say that. They have a combined 40 years in city government, and I have a fresh perspective and a fresh new voice that I think that is needed in City Hall. That's what I hear as I talk to people throughout this campaign, is that a true change is needed, and I think I represent that. In my 10 years as the executive director of the Downtown Rutland Partnership, I've had to pull together business leaders, property owners, all for the betterment of the city, working towards one common goal. What I'm seeing right now, and I think others would agree, is that the economic development folks, whether it be Reddick or the RRA or my office at the Downtown Rutland Partnership, are working together in a collaborative effort like never has happened before. And those are the type of things that need to happen with city government right now. There's too much infighting and bickering for too long, and a lot of it is old grudges from the past that continue to be brought up. And I believe that I bring that fresh perspective and that leadership to City Hall.
Let's ask Mr. Cam Johnson the same question, sir. What is it that would make you a better mayor than any of the other candidates? What qualities do you possess that they do not?
Well, I hope we'll have an opportunity to reverse order at some point, so I'm not always batting cleanup. But in this instance, I think that I provide the appeal to the silent majority. I think these politicians, they're all former aldermen. They were there when all these messes happened. Some of them may not have been there as long as some of the others, but at the point that I believe John D. Public is fed up, and this is the unique opportunity where there will be a split opportunity to vote. And I think that that's why, if you're truly interested in budget cutting and you vote no, you would vote for me on the budget, because at the point that anybody else you vote for, they've advocated increasing taxes, or they've advocated the Loris-Allaire budget. The Loris budget was a 10% increase. The Loris-Allaire budget was a 5% increase. And I think people are fed up not being able to make those type of cuts that they need to. The reason that I think I would be good for this job is I used to be an account manager. I used to be a computer trainer. I had $1 million clients back when $1 million actually was a lot of money. And I worked with people at all levels of the economic spectrum. I did watch or listen to your show recently, and so I take the individual perspective, and these individuals to my right all take the issue that government can solve their problems, and I don't think they can always do that. I would apply the golden rule that suggests that I want the government to deal fairly with me, and I will deal fairly with them. And I guess since Allaire supposedly is rising at this point, I guess it's appropriate to say that he was fired from his House seat. He was fired from president of the Board of Aldermen. So the people that really know him over time have decided he no longer fits the bill. And so I think it's appropriate that as we move forward, that we have new the last thing I would say in this instance, if you're not willing to hire the captain, you certainly don't want to hire the co-pilot. And I would say you certainly don't want anybody from the back seat. And I think that's Mr. Allaire. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, may I ask a question? I'm going to follow up with other questions to you, gentlemen. You're running for 4 different jobs. What happens if you win all 4?
I will have to make a decision. So the mayor would be
Could
the
you
first
not
person.
make up your mind which office you want?
Well, the problem is the public has voted for me in different seats. And so when the assessor will not debate, he's been there for 35 years, I need to have issues out there. And unless you're willing to spend money, and the other thing is on the school board, they didn't even have a full slate. So if I hadn't come up, we would have, not only is there 1 empty seat, there would have been 2 empty seats. So at the point that if other people would come forward, I would be more than willing. Also, if you elect me, I'll stop running for multiple offices, because it would, by charter, would be precluded from holding multiple offices. So while it may look like I'm actually hedging my bets and saying the public want to hire me, I give you alternatives.
Mr. Allaire?
Can I just say a couple things? One, I heard a question, and it was just brought up about what exactly is on the ballot as far as the municipal budget. And over the course of November, December, the board cut out of the increase of $2 million, $1.2 million was cut from the budget. So I believe the increase is somewhere in the area of $800,000. I don't have the figure right in front of me. So that's basically what's going to be, and most of that is an increase in the pension. And as far as one other thing that Mr. Coppinger said here, who is standing next to me, as far as being a fresh face, I just want to note that I think about 2001 or 2002, he was elected to the Board of Aldermen and spent 6 years, which wasn't very much later than when I was first elected. So, and he's been as the executive director of the partnership for the last 10 years.
Correct,
so,
David, and I was a top
I just
vote,
wanted to
and
say,
I was a top vote getter two times.
This
that I
part
ran,
about
but
fresh face, I think,
one
is
at a time,
something-
gentlemen, please.
Thank you.
But I did step down. You have been in city government for 19 years, and a lot of the things that you're talking about, pension issues and things like that, you were either leading the board or making those decisions all along. So again, you have been there. I haven't been on the board for 10 years. You have been there. I believe I represent the fresh face and voice that people need.
Mayor Loris?
Well, I can't speak to my own face because it's a scary thing to look at in the mirror, but I will say Dave is looking extremely fresh over these past couple of weeks. But to the budget issue that's before us in fiscal year 18, the taxpayers and the residents, but predominantly taxpayers, need to recognize that the budgets that were delivered to the Board of Aldermen in fiscal year 15, fiscal year 16, and fiscal year 17 were all right at the same amount, which frankly resulted in lower tax rates for those years, 16, 17. And that was done through creativity and skill, with me working with my department heads and the other folks in City Hall to develop those budgets that provided savings to the taxpayers over several years. And then with the fiscal year 18 budget, the Board of Aldermen mandated, for some good reasons and some not so good reasons, a nearly $750,000 bump for the pension. And I delivered a very healthy budget to the board, so they had the opportunity to do exactly what I and my department heads had done for the last several years to try to maintain a level-funded budget in the face of one very large line increase, which was the pension.
Gentlemen, the questions that we've gotten from our listeners, I want to move to, they're coming into three different areas: management, finance and money, some of which you've talked on here, and certainly management style, and the future. When it comes to management, there is one area that seems to be the most contentious. It is the area that I know maybe some of you do not want to talk about, but here's a question for the mayor. My question for Mayor Loris: why did you choose not to inform the Board of Aldermen and the citizens of Rutland about your application to bring Syrian refugees to Rutland? What was your reasoning in keeping the application secret? A second question that's part of that, that was from Dave. The second question from Jim: would you do it different if you did it all over again?
So the question is, I'll speak to the first question first. And I'll say at some level that's a little bit of a faulty premise because it was not kept a secret. There were scores of local stakeholders involved in that conversation from the very beginning. Individuals who were subject matter experts in the three areas of capacity that any new community is assessed on when they're determined whether or not they're going to be a new host community for refugee resettlement, and that's the areas of especially entry-level jobs, but entry-level jobs so people can build their English language skills, ELL, English language learning, otherwise used to be called ESL capacity, both in the schools and for adults, and safe and sanitary housing. So scores of individuals were brought into that conversation, so it was not a unilateral decision. To the specific question about the board and the public and having a broad public dialogue at the front end, I've been very clear on this matter since the very first Board of Aldermen meeting after the announcement in April. And that's because I understand the board, I know the board, and recognize that if there had been that type of wide open public dialogue at the same time we were doing the assessment, then we naturally would have arrived at a public vote on who our neighbors are. And as I've said time and time again since that first meeting in May, that's not who we are as a country. That's not what I fought for when I served my 10 years active duty And that's not what many other veterans who I've had discussions with feel they fought for, was to vote on who our neighbors were. I knew that that would be the outcome if we had that broad discussion. And we narrowly, by one vote on the Board of Aldermen, missed having a public vote. And that, frankly, would not demonstrate who we are as a community, a state, or a country.
To Jim's question, would you do it differently if you did it all over again?
And I'll be honest, I would like to think I could find a way to do it differently, but I'm not going to armchair quarterback myself and say, here's what I should have done, and spend the time, energy, and resources to figure that out. So I made the decision at the time. I own that decision, and I've been very, very clear that I accept the consequences, if there are any, for not notifying the Board of Aldermen.
Mr. Johnson, a response?
Yeah, I'm the only candidate here that has actually offered a plan. There's been a year since that we've gone through this process, and I think as we look at it, I would obviously have objected to the characterization that the mayor did, that a vote is bad. What I would suggest is that I would have suspended the program to make sure it works. I would have followed the Canadian model, and there was an article in the Washington Post today that they did a study in 2007 that says when you have sponsor families that bring refugees in, they are 50% less likely to end up on public assistance. So I would make that connection, just like we do with foreign exchange students that come in every year, that would be a plan that would work. And the vote that I would ask for is a bond, and I would get rid of the pool in order to I would ask the public to reset this so that $1 million would be set in a fund, because right now with the federal program, it is now not funded, and so there's no money to fund it. So in New York, they're trying to raise $26 million or more, whereas I would not get into a program unless we could support it. So that's why I would suggest openness as well as public buy-in.
Mr. Lair?
I just would like to take issue a little bit about the process and differentiate myself in leadership style with the mayor. My first stop, if this issue had been presented to me, would have been to go to the citizens of the city of Rutland and to the Board of Aldermen and initiate a dialogue to find out all the answers to the questions that, frankly, we're still asking. Cost, vetting, et cetera. This is not about the refugees themselves. This is about the process. This is about trust. This is about leadership, and this is about respect. And that's the difference you would have seen if Dave Allaire was in the mayor's seat.
Gentlemen, another area of this is somebody said that we should ask, and again, I'll ask this of all of you. I'll start with you, Mr. Coppinger. The idea of having a strong central executive branch, strength in the mayor's office, based on what we have seen here and the controversy surrounding it, there are some that are saying more should be given over to the Board of Aldermen and less power to the mayor. Would you agree with that?
I believe in the charter of the city, the way it's drawn out right now. There's checks and balances between the executive branch and the Board of Aldermen.
Does that mean no change?
That I would not change.
Okay.
I would not change. I think that a strong mayor has the support of the public and works with the Board of Aldermen. They can disagree without being disagreeable. I don't think we've seen that right now. I have been saying that all along during this campaign, and they needs to have a better working relationship, but again, still tied to the system of checks and balances.
Gentlemen, anybody else? Would you look for something different? Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, actually, I advocated 2 years ago in 2015 that the mayor's position is too powerful. And so I would make the recommendation that he has to release his schedule, that I've made some transparency proposals that with the mayor, and be putting me in there, it would guarantee that it would happen without a charter change, because I do think the mayor is too strong. So I would water it down.
Mr. Allaire?
To that question, I think in this instance and in most instances in our history, the way that the mayor's office and the Board of Aldermen conducts their business and how that is a function of the charter is also a function of the personalities that are involved in each office. So while I would not recommend any changes right now in the charter. I think there are other areas that are relevant to that whole question that need review, and I think there are more language changes to clarify exactly what the roles are of both the mayor and the Board of Aldermen, and I think that's been borne out by some of the things that have happened in the last year.
All right, let's go to the phones. Hi, you're on the air with Tim Philbin. Hi, you're on the air. Do you have a question?
Hi, Tim. I do have a quick question.
Okay.
Dave has said publicly before that he would be able to cut $1 million from the general fund budget. I'm just wondering why he hasn't taken the opportunity in his position thus far to do that. And in the interest of transparency, was wondering whether he could tell us what specific departments or programs he would cut.
Okay, good question.
And I'll
Thank you
take
so
my
much.
answer off the air. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Allaire?
Well, I think what I've said here in my public statements recently is that I have been able to, along with the members of the Board of Aldermen, cut $1.2 million from the budget that was presented to us in November of last year. I do not recall specifically saying that I would be able to find another $1 million to cut throughout the city budget. If that's possible, I would certainly take a look at that. I think what needs to be done in any new administration is for the mayor to come in, get together with his department heads, whether new or existing, and review all the operations from top to bottom, identify and streamline activities, look at ways to save money. And frankly, what we need here in the city is to grow the grand list and create jobs and fill up the empty housing so those houses are put back on the grand list. And I think that would help immensely toward any budget issues that we have.
Your Honor?
Yeah, I can't say where I would make specific cuts right now to the current budget. It's an ongoing process through the year where there needs to be flexibility, and we've taken advantage of that flexibility and found opportunities over the last 10 years. So over the last 10 years since I've been mayor, we have saved the taxpayers literally over $10 million. $6 million alone was through being fair but firm with the unions in negotiating healthcare, our healthcare insurance policy, and creating opportunities for employees to step up to the plate and pay their fair share when that wasn't the case 10 years ago. Likewise, we saved an additional $4 million and change through consolidation of positions in City Hall, through reorganization of departments, DPW, Recreation, City Hall itself. And it's, there's not just, you can't just look at one budget and say, I'm going to save $10 million. It's playing the long game.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Because a lot of you talked about pensions and budgets, and the pension is a huge part of this budget. Is it appropriate, you think, for the city to move away from its pension, like private companies have done, to complete 401k plans?
Oh, no, well, we didn't do it to 401k, but what we did was we moved all City Hall employees, again, through firm but fair negotiations with the unions, to VEMRS, the Vermont Municipal Employee Retirement System, and that's going to save the taxpayers a great deal of money. But more importantly, we are going to be able to look at that last city employee in 40 or 60 years walking down the street and saying, you know what, that's the last city employee that's going to be on a Rutland City pension. We don't have the capacity to manage our own pension in the city, and that was determined not just by my office, but supported by the Board of Aldermen, who wisely saw we should move to VEMRS and approve those contracts, and likewise to our partners at the state through the League of Cities and Towns and our pension management firm. They recognize we need to move away from that city pension, and we are on VEMRS now.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I would. I hadn't thought of 401ks, but that certainly is something that I think that we do need strong negotiation. I would cut the pension money out this year, but it only happens if the public votes it down. It's an academic exercise if they don't vote no on the budget, because nothing can be cut. You could sequester potentially, but nothing could be cut without it. I've advocated repurposing the bond for the pool. I've advocated cutting fluoride, which is a small amount of money, but it's a step to say that I'm willing to make cuts. And then I would advocate that the public get involved in the process, because when we go through this process of budget cutting, it only happens if people buy into it. And I think by giving away the pension, they did the same thing Burlington did. They made a mistake, and they gave away more benefits when they didn't realize there wouldn't be money there in the future. So in order to fix that, it has to be the unions have to come to the table, and I don't think Dave Allaire has demonstrated leadership in union management, and I'm very concerned that all the benefits that we've gotten under Loris for union negotiations will fly out the window if we change leadership on that issue, but I still think you ought to vote for me. Thank you.
Mr. Coppinger?
Well, I'm glad we're back on the budget because I believe that's the most important thing that both the Board of Aldermen and Mayor have to work on is coming up with a fiscally sound budget that provides the services that the city needs and that the city is expecting. And I disagree with David's assertion that he hadn't said in a news report that he was going to cut $1 million out of the budget. I could stand to be corrected on that one, but the bigger point actually is the most recent budget that was just pulled together by the Board of Aldermen funded both police officers, and after David on the board cut 2 police officers from this budget, had made an agreement that they would pay for up to 2 officers out of the city's unassigned fund balance, as well as the deal that was made for the fire department to make sure, which I do fully support the fire department having the 7 firemen on duty. They agreed to pay for those additional firemen out of the unassigned fund balance. So what's going to happen next year is there's going to be a massive increase on the general fund that is going to be on the backs of the property taxpayers. This is the deal, the can that was kicked down the proverbial road. This is the deal that the gentleman to my right who wants to be mayor has come up with. He's going to have to deal with a massive increase on top of talking about cutting the budget. I don't know what kind of math he's basing this off of, but it doesn't add up to me.
I have a question that I want to come to that is back here on the refugee issue to some extent. Mr. Mayor, you said that you talked about the direction that the country is going and how we're doing things. Would you be in favor of declaring Rutland City a sanctuary city?
Negative. If I thought that was a good idea, I'd have done it by now.
Mr. Allaire?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Coppinger?
No, I do not.
And Mr. Johnson?
Uniformity, no.
Okay. Wow, we got something they all agreed on. I think the planets are going to collide. 802-773-9792, 877-241-5960. You've got a question. I have another question. This one in from Dawn. RRA President Duffy has publicly stated that businesses do not want to come to the city because taxes are too high. Now the state is hinting about a reappraisal for Rutland City, which will drive up taxes considerably. How will you keep our taxes at an affordable level for our residents? And I'll start with you, Mr. Johnson.
Well, ironically enough, that's one of the positions that I'm running for as assessor, because I think we are at almost the 20%.
We're here to talk about mayor.
Oh, well, you asked the question earlier as to why I was asking for multiple offices. So you
Yes,
set
I
the
know,
plate, and so therefore I should defend why I'm seeking 4 offices.
Could you not find another job? What is this all about?
Well, that's the whole point. If the public indeed, well, it's that condescending marginal attitude that I've had to deal with for the last 4 years, that every time I step forward and say, hire me, there aren't enough of the silent majority that are pissed off enough to come out and vote. There are 10,000 registered voters, and only 3,000 vote in March elections. But in terms of actually, now you got me off track. What's the question?
It was
lowering
about why we're running for
yes.
4 offices, I think is where we got to.
Okay,
But anyway,
no,
it
the
was
grand
reappraisal.
list. Yes, actually, the reappraisal has nothing to do with the tax bill. The only reason it would happen is because the values of houses are going down, so they would have to increase the tax rate to offset that. When Stratton did it, it went down $200 million. We've artificially increased the amount of taxes we're taking out of people through the mechanism. So I would finally say that the way you deal with taxes is you reduce the budget. And therefore, if we do have increased reappraisal costs, the other thing is I would say that we could do it in-house and save $500,000 instead of doing it to sending out somebody in Connecticut. So I'm very interested in cutting the budget and cutting taxes, and the only way you can do that is to vote for me and vote against this budget.
What if they hired you for all 4 jobs, paid you one salary? They could save some money on the budget.
Yeah, we could change the charter.
Okay,
I would be entirely in favor of that.
Mr. Coppinger, please.
Well, and Tim, I brought this up when we had our PEG TV debate a couple of weeks ago. I've put forth, and as I said it in the debate, you don't talk about taxes or you don't talk about the establishment of taxes when you're running for office. But I didn't decide to run for mayor for any backroom deals that some candidates have put out there or supporters of candidates have put out there. I came to this
Could you give me an example of a backroom deal?
There has been supporters of some candidates who have said supporters of Mr. Lair's who have said that I have made a deal with the mayor to steal votes from Mr. Allaire in order to assure that Chris would be back in office, and that afterward that he would give me a position in government. It's not true. Even if Chris did offer me, if Chris won and offered me a position, I would not take that. I got into this for one reason and one reason alone. I care about this community, and I care about the future of this community. That being said, the challenge that we have here, and again, I've worked in economic development for the last 10 years. I've lived here all my life. The problem we have here is we cannot grow the tax base as fast as we want. And we have a lot of people that come in to utilize our resources. You said it in the first hour, that people come into the city. What happens in this city echoes throughout the county. We have people who utilize services here, whether it be state, courts, social services, and whatnot. They're using our roads, they're using our fire and police protection, and we cannot grow the tax base as fast as we want. We have to somehow generate income, generate money from them to be able to pay for the roads, to be able to fix the pipes. I have proposed a 1% tax, which is a tax that is in place in many other communities around us and in northern Vermont, to help bring in additional revenue to, number one, pay for the infrastructure, for infrastructure upgrades. Number one. Number two, to deal with the pension issue so it's not based on the property taxpayers, balanced on their backs. I'm the only one that's put forth any sort of plan like that. Mr. Allaire has talked about we need sidewalks, we need roads, has put nothing forth on how to pay for it other than on the property taxpayers. Now, again, it might not be what people want to hear, but that is how we bring more revenue in there. And the other point of the 1% tax is based on the market study that is done, half of the dollars that are spent here in the city are spent by people who are coming in to visit. People who are coming in to go to work here and whatnot. That's how we, for 50 cents on the dollar, that's how we pull more money into the city coffers in order to pay for our infrastructure.
Mr. Allaire, good idea to raise taxes or not?
Well, in my long career, both locally and up in Montpelier, I think that I have come out time and again by saying that that's not a good idea, but a very bad idea.
You voted for the 1% rooms, meals, and entertainment tax when you and I were on the board together.
I would like to be able to finish if I could. What I wanted to say was, right now we have to do everything we can to incent people to come into the city of Rutland, not put up more barriers. A local option tax on top of all the taxes that we pay right now is absolutely the wrong idea. What we need is sound fiscal management. We need to build up the grand list. We need to streamline operations. Those are the things that need to be done in order to make ourselves attractive for new businesses to come into the city of Rutland. And I'd like to say also that as far as people, supporters of me or anybody else out on the street, they're talking about backroom deals. I don't know what he's talking about.
May I ask, Mr. Cobbs raised a valid point, though. You did vote to have the rooms and meals tax, did you not?
And I very well might have, and that was at a very different time where we were in a situation where I believe that money was going to go toward police operations. It never did find its way over there. It ended up in the general fund. And looking back, maybe that wasn't a good decision. Sometimes, you don't always hit a home run.
Mr. Mayor, do you support the idea of Mr. Coppinger's of raising the tax?
For that local option tax, let's see. What I'll speak to that is more globally. And
how about Rutland City taxpayers instead of people globally? Would you be supporting his idea of that 1% tax?
Negative, but can I explain why?
Okay.
Because in order to accomplish that task, and it would be no small feat, it'd be difficult to get that language through the legislature. And time and again, the League of Cities and Towns and the Mayor's Coalition has not been successful in making that local option tax accessible to all communities. But where we can use that political capital, where we should be focusing our efforts, is what we're doing right now, and that's banding together with other communities throughout the state to expand the TIF option, the tax increment financing option. The VLCT, that is the Vermont League of Cities and Towns and the Vermont Mayor's Coalition, is one of our priorities. This year, we finally have the support of the governor. We have strong support in the Senate and growing support in the House to create that TIF district so we can find a way to grow our grand list we can grow our grand list without impacting that local option tax, which is a very, very difficult proposition. So 3 years ago, the Mayor's Coalition, the 8 mayors, we championed an effort to broaden the TIF and got that done. So we're trying to replicate that again this year, along with our partners throughout the state and along with the League of Cities and Towns and working with organization like the Rutland Redevelopment Authority. So in short, I would not support the local option tax for the reasons given by Mr. Allaire and for the concerns that have been articulated by Mr. Coppinger as well, because there's a better way to spend our political capital and get the job done a different way.
Another area here, if you're elected, or if you're reelected, excuse me, you going to offer a job to Mr. Coppinger?
Negative.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we got that straight. Mr. Johnson, you have something you want to say, sir?
Yeah, there's no background deal with me either, because I've attempted to get appointed to the Board of Aldermen unsuccessfully from the mayor on at least 2 separate occasions. And I think this is the only place in municipal government that a cut can be a false cut. They just cut increases. They didn't actually cut the budget. And so my argument is it's like the toad that's in the frying pan, that it may seem like it's not too hot, and level funding doesn't accomplish anything. I'm against the local tax only because it's the same concept as the pension. You don't take all your money and put it in a pool and then say somebody else come donate. It's kind of like when public radio sold their station for $52 million, and yet they're immediately going to run out and go do fundraising. So I think if you have money, you need to channel your resources, and therefore, if you're anti-tax, you need to vote for me and vote against the budget too. Thank you.
I have another something that I want to try here, gentlemen, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Coppinger. You may ask a question of any of the other candidates. Who would you like to direct your question towards, and what would it be?
I'd like to point it towards Mr. Allaire as to he has said throughout the campaign that he is going to have a laser-like focus on growing jobs here. I have not seen any plan on any website. Well, he doesn't have a website with any of his plans on there. I'd like to know exactly, from a strategic standpoint, what exactly he's going to do to help grow jobs in the area.
Okay. Mr. Allaire?
Well, what I have said up to this point, and what I will continue to say, is we need to work collaboratively with some of the programs that we have already put in place. And I think what part of the problem is that the story hasn't gotten out, and we have not had that collaboration between the Board of Aldermen and the Mayor's office. The board has put in very aggressive tax stabilization programs, both residential and commercial and industrial. And those programs, although initially introduced to the community, have not been marketed in the way that they should be. So I think that going out and telling the story, not only here locally but across the state, is going to help with increasing something that I think everybody in the United States and probably throughout the world is trying to do, and that's build up economic development. I have a history of working collaboratively at the regional level. I'm working with the Rutland Regional Planning Commission for the last 3 years, talking with our fellow communities. And one of their focuses in just recent times is making their decisions based on economics, based on the future. So I think that that's another opportunity for us. And, of course, the Regional Marketing Initiative, which the Board of Aldermen has funded, at the $100,000 level through the Zamias Fund, $50,000 this year, $50,000 next year. I think that has all sorts of opportunities and moving forward. But again, that's something that needs to be the story needs to be told in a better way.
A quick response, Mr. Coppinger?
So those are all things that are going on right now. Those are no new ideas. And so I guess I'm again going to ask my question: what nuance is Mr. Allaire going to bring to the table to build economic development? And I still didn't hear that in that answer.
Mr. Allaire, do you have a question for any of the other candidates?
I guess I do have one question, and it's been asked once before, but I guess I'm going to ask again, and it's for the mayor, and it's about the process that happened last year with refugee resettlement. And I guess what I just want to find out is why, again, explain to the community how you came to the decision between November and the announcement in April that it was a good idea not to inform both the Board of Aldermen and the greater Rutland community of your initiative to bring refugees to the city of Rutland.
Yeah, and instead of just saying I just answered that question 5 minutes ago, I'll just answer it again very quickly. It was because I understand the board. I know the individual players. I understand the community and recognize that we ultimately would have ended up with a ballot question about whether or not to decide who our neighbors are. And again, I don't think that's who we are as a community, as a state, or as a country to vote on our neighbors.
Mr. Mayor, was it a mistake not to put this before the voters?
What was that? Okay, I think that's a double negative.
Well, no, the reason I
no,
asked you this is because you were saying you know that they would have voted this thing.
Yes, absolutely.
What question would have been on the ballot that you know would have been there?
No, whether it doesn't matter what the language was that was going to be on the ballot. It doesn't matter what the language that the Board of Aldermen crafted to put on the ballot that was narrowly missed putting on the ballot by one vote. The way it would have been portrayed locally, the way it would have been portrayed throughout the state and throughout the country was, here is a community that is having a vote on whether or not they want to let people in. No one voted on my grandfather when he came from Greece. No one voted on the Sicilians or the Italians or the Poles 100 years ago. No one voted on the Jews coming to this community in the 1930s when they were fleeing for their lives from not just Nazi oppression, but the fascism and fleeing a Holocaust. We don't get to vote on who our neighbors are. And I don't care what the language specifically would have been, Tim, that was on the ballot. It would have been portrayed as, are we going to let these people here or not?
Are there
that's
other?
wrong.
I've got to follow through on this because it comes down to management leadership. Are there other issues that voters should not be allowed to vote on?
That's up to the charter, and as Mike had articulated before, and I know Dave feels the same way.
Well, the reason I ask is
very strong
because
argument that where great deference is given to the elected officials, whether it's the Board of Aldermen or the mayor, to make decisions for this community. We live in a Republican democracy, a democratic republic, not a direct democracy, and taxpayers, residents, citizens are given the opportunity to vote on who their leaders are. That's why
this
there's
had
four of us
nothing
here
to
today.
do with a letter that you received that said, "Do not bring this to the public's attention," because all sorts of people would come out of the woodwork.
No, of course not. Because the decision was made to have those conversations.
Did you get that letter?
No, there was an email that was sent, but that email, frankly, Tim, it had to do with when we were going to have the announcement. The announcement was initially slated to be made a week earlier at a Project Vision meeting rather than at a standalone press conference. And that's what that was about, is let's not discuss this until we're ready for a broad rollout at a press conference instead of having it at a Project Vision meeting.
Let's go, Mr. Johnson, sir.
Yes, it has become a private debate, it seems, but thank you for letting me participate. I would ask, is this asking my question or answering?
You look like you said you wanted to respond. That's why I haven't gotten to that part for you yet.
I'll respond then to that. I am aware of the fact that people turn people away and the fact that people are having trouble with refugees all over the world. And if we had 250,000 on our shores tomorrow, the argument that we should do nothing to protect our borders, I don't think would be the same conversation. If we were living in Greece or we were living in Italy right now, we would have a major issue that we would have to handle and the mayor would have to take action at that point. But what I'm arguing for is that you have to have money in order to do something, and that's why I have the only plan that would have made sure that we handled it correctly, and I'm looking forward to asking my question.
No, please do. I'm going to give you that opportunity right now. A question for any one of the other candidates.
Yes, Alderman Allaire. I am aware of press reports that have suggested that you've gotten endorsed by Rutland First, although I've seen no formal endorsement that has come out in any press release or anything. What is your position now that we've gone a year? If you were mayor right now, what would your plan be other than putting it on the ballot so that it would be 2 years from now before anything happens? You said you're in favor of the refugees and you gave them some furniture as a donation, but in terms of what is your position on, would you scrap the program completely and evict the two people that are here under the federal guidelines? And what would you say to the Rutland Welcomes folks when you say that you can heal this community when you got support from their mortal enemy?
Well, I'm not sure that they're mortal enemies. I think that they have different positions on the refugee question. I have been pretty clear right along that I don't believe this particular program, the way that it was presented, is appropriate for the city of Rutland, and therefore I do not support it. The bigger question is right now, it's in the hands of the federal government. It's not in the hands of the city of Rutland. And we can certainly continue to talk about it. I have welcomed those two families that are here. I would welcome any family who wants to move into the city of Rutland, and because we are a giving and welcoming community, and I've been pretty clear on that. So I guess that's my answer.
Here's a question for all of you. You build a better mousetrap, the world will be the path to your door. One of the central issues about this was to bring more people into the community to help it grow. Would it not make more sense to help grow the economy, and then people would move here, similar to what they're trying to do up in Burlington? I mean, Global Foundries just said they're going to hire 200 more people. So my question then, what plan do you have in place to grow the economy in this city? And I will start with you, Mr. Coppinger.
Well, I think first off is having a conversation with our employers, and I do that on a daily, monthly basis, whether it be my time on the chamber board. But a lot of our employers cannot find skilled people to work for them. They cannot find that here. We need to educate our workforce. We need to give them opportunities. We need to help the folks who are here right now, so our employers can hire from the population that's here right now. I've put forth the idea that the city needs to be more involved with the Workforce Investment Board to help folks climb that ladder who are underemployed or unemployed, help be able to train them. The other thing is what's happening right now with the connection between our colleges and universities in the area and the business community, like Reddick, just downstairs in this room. That's going to help our skilled and educated workforce replace the folks that are going to be retiring in the next 10 years. And that's, I think, when you start to be able to do that, to put the people who work here right now, that's going to help grow the economy. The other thing, again, and I've had the opportunity to work with Reddick on opportunities like the makerspace that's happening up on Quality Lane, where the new entrepreneurs of today are getting out of their basements and garages and having the opportunity to test new ideas and test new products and things like that. Pushing those type of things to help regenerate our economy is what's going to move us forward.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I would advertise that we're having an economic debate at College of St. Joseph's on March 1st at 7 p.m., and I'll outline a further plan there where I have more time. But I advocated the train, and hopefully Amtrak won't mess it up. But in terms of being able to actually live here and work in Burlington, it makes a win-win. There was an article in the newspaper the other day which indicates there's a new fund out there that they're funding businesses, and they have $50 million to spend. So the first thing I would do is cart myself up there to make sure that we are on the list. They've funded some companies in Bristol and some other places, and so that's what we need to do, is to leverage that. And Hobby Lobby and all these came in without any incentives, and I would be the cheerleader for the city, not only to cut taxes, instead of these incentives that if you ask them for an audit, there's no generated economic benefit that they can find that actually produces any more revenue. So I would highly advocate making sure that we focus on the private sector to create jobs.
Mr. Loris?
Yeah, and if you want to not rephrase, could you repeat the question for me? Because I think it got a little bit sideways. And I want to make sure.
Again, it was about building a better mousetrap. If you improve the economy, more people will move here rather than importing people.
Well, Rutland is not alone. The entire state is facing a workforce and a population problem outside of that small pocket around Burlington and Chittenden County. Our population is declining, and we need to address the workforce issues. There are a number of ways to do that that are already taking place, but most importantly, the most important piece is attracting and retaining families and individuals, men and women, of childbearing years. Our population in Rutland is getting grayer, it's getting older, the fertility rates are dropping, and we need to attract and retain millennials and post-millennials. Part of doing that, one thing they're insisting on in the communities they live, is they want to live in diverse communities. They want to work in diverse workplaces, and we need to broaden our diversity, become a much younger community and a much different color community in order to take advantage of the millennials that are growing throughout the country, because 50% of all people 35 and younger in this country, childbearing years, are people of color, and we need to attract and retain them and give them a diverse community in which to live. The workforce, I speak through examples, the workforce challenge we have can be embodied most importantly, or easily rather, through the General Electric issue. They've got over 1,000 employees, and they're retiring 35 to 50 people a year over the next 5 to 10 years. If GE packs up and leaves, we might as well just roll up the carpets and pack up the tents, because GE is not going to leave because of Vermont's Act 250. GE is not going to leave because of Rutland's transportation infrastructure. GE is not going to leave because of Vermont's tax base or Rutland's tax base in the city or town. GE will leave because they don't have the workforce to fill their vacancies. And that's not just them. All employers in this community can't find the workers to fill their vacancies. And that's how we grow an economy, is by bringing people in, filling those jobs, and creating that self-sustaining economic engine through employment.
Mr. Allaire.
So some of the key points that I've been talking about and will continue to is lower taxes, a good education, workforce training, marketing, and thinking regionally. I think to our path forward is to be informed with our eyes wide open about the challenges that we have to create an environment that is focused on welcoming new investment, entrepreneurs, and job creation. And I think it's about attitude, and I think it's about perception. And we can change both by getting our voices heard and getting out and telling our story throughout the state and throughout the country.
So I'm going to close. I'm going to give you each, if I can, as best as I can, about 30 seconds why people should vote for you, and I'm going to cut you off at 30 seconds with a buzzer. Mr. Johnson.
This is the time I didn't want to go first. I think that I should be elected because I'm the only John Q. Public person here. Everybody else represents the status quo. They are going to promise you things that they can't deliver. And as we go through this process, I think that you have an opportunity to cut the budget, and we know that decreasing the budget decreases taxes, which increase incentives. We got Hobby Lobby here. We got Aldi's here. We can grow this economy. We just have to get out of the mindset that it's city government that's controlling all of this information. What really needs to happen is you have to believe. If you didn't believe and you stopped watching the Patriots in the third quarter, you would have had a different reality of the next day. So,
I'm sorry, sir. That was sort of stepping on the toes of Jack Healy, who fell asleep before the game was over, but we won't go into that. I will go now to Mayor Loris, sir. Why? 30 seconds, people should vote for you.
We have built too much momentum. There has been too many successes and too much progress over the last number of years, the last 10 years in this community. And we do not need to change who's at the top. We've been successful. We are a destination. We are the envy of the rest of the state. And in our opiate response, we're the envy of the rest of the nation. And we've got to build on that momentum. And I'm the guy to do it. I'm the only one that's got the tools, has demonstrated the skills and acumen to...
Mr. Allaire, I'm sorry, we just run out of time, gents. Mr. Allaire, very quickly.
Very quickly, this election is about leadership. It's about transparency. It's about respect. Those are the qualities that I will bring to City Hall in the mayor's office, and I ask for your support.
Wow, you saved some time there. Mr. Coppinger.
Well, I believe that I'm the only true candidate up here that has a fresh perspective and that can mend the divide that Mr. Allaire and the mayor have caused. I've laid out my plan very, in the interest of transparency. Mike Coppinger for Rutland.com. You can look at what exactly my plan is to do. I believe I'm the only one up here that does have the plan. I believe, in deference to the mayor, that the mayor's office is bigger than one person. I have a track record of collaboration, bringing people together.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you all for being here today in this very shortened period of time. I want to thank Mayor Chris Loris, Mr. David Allaire, Mr. Michael Coppinger, Mr. Cam Johnson for participating today. There's certainly a lot more questions that you have. These guys, you can see them walking around town. Ask them. There are going to be other forums for these guys to ask questions. And don't be afraid to call in here. Oh, they'll listen. I told you they listened. They listened the first hour, didn't they? We'll be back here again tomorrow, God willing. We will all talk then. I want to find out who you think did a better job today. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Don't forget to go to WSYB1380am.com. You can also vote for who you think would be the best mayor. We have that little poll going on.